The stars vanished. One moment, ardent 12 and descent and the sky was clear, its two moons casting pale light over the colony's forests and silver oceans. The next, the heavens were swallowed by the sharp silhouettes of warships. Hundreds of them, each one bristling with plasma batteries and ion cannons, sliding into formation with precision that spoke of centuries of conquest. On every comm frequency, the alien voice arrived. It wasn't spoken, it imposed. Deep, resonant, a command more than a broadcast. People of Earth, this world now belongs to the Zorth Dominion. Kneel, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will burn. On the bridge of the human flagship, Resolute silence followed. Captain Elena Marlowe didn't move. Her hands rested on the edge of the holotable, her jaw set. At 34, she had already seen 3 colonies scarred by alien aggression, and she wasn't about to watch a 4th burn without fighting back. Captain? Her first officer, Commander Rafe Imani, broke the silence. His voice carried the question everyone feared to ask. Do we surrender? Elena's eyes lifted to the main display. The alien flagship loomed. Oblivion's Fang, a vessel 3 times the length of the Resolute. Somewhere aboard it, High Marshal Kryth was no doubt watching, waiting for her answer. She took a slow breath. Her crew was watching too. The entire colony was. This moment would decide their fate. Her voice, when it came, was steady. Open a channel. The comm officer swallowed. Open, Captain. Elena leaned forward, speaking as if she were staring Kryth in the eye. This is Captain Elena Marlowe of the United Human Fleet. Ardent 12. Quinta, Temdionpoquanina Satwai, AIM-12 is sovereign human territory. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. Gasps broke among the junior officers, quickly drowned by the tightening hum of machinery, as the alien fleet shifted formation. The threat wasn't idle. They were preparing to strike. Cry Threxian. Then we make them bleed before they touch soil, Elena snapped. All batteries lock on nearest targets. Fighters launch and intercept. We hold the line. The ship vibrated as railguns spun up, cannons primed. Beyond the viewports, human starfighters roared from their base like a cloud of angry hornets. The first clash was immediate, brutal. Alien plasma streaks tore through space, white-hot lances that shredded 2 human frigates before they could maneuver. The explosions lit up the dark, scattering debris across the void. "Frigates Halberd and Mercy lost!" an ensign cried out. Elena's teeth ground together. 2 ships gone already. That was 200 lives, snuffed out in seconds, and Kryth hadn't even committed his main fleet yet. But then a cheer rose as the Resolute's forward batteries unleashed a storm of slugs, ripping through a Zorth corvette and sending it tumbling aflame. Another fell to the starfighters, their missiles puncturing its hull until it ruptured in a silent, brilliant bloom. "Direct hits!" the gunnery officer shouted. 2 enemy vessels down! Elena didn't allow herself relief. This was only the beginning. On the ground below, the colony's defense sirens wailed, calling civilians to shelters. Elena pictured families huddling underground, children clinging to parents, wondering if the sky itself was about to fall. Her resolve hardened. She would not let them down. The comm crackled again, this time a ground channel. "Captain Marlowe, this is Governor Harren. The Dominion is jamming our long-range comms. We're cut off from Earth." "Then Earth will hear about this the only way we know how," Elena replied. "Through victory." Governor Harren's voice trembled. "Can you hold them?" Elena looked around at her bridge crew, their faces pale but burning with the same fire she felt. She remembered Earth's history books, the wars, the sieges, the Coante. I desperate the last stands where humanity refused to bow. "Yes," she said firmly, "we'll hold." Outside, the battle raged. Ships burned, shields flared, and space itself seemed to shatter under the fury of weapons. But Captain Elena Marlowe's words carried across the fleet like steel. "They thought we'd kneel. Let's show them what it means to be human." The colony burned. From orbit, ardent cuervo. It was a patchwork of flame. The Earth bombardment had begun in earnest. Plasma lances carving molten scars across continents. Forests ignited like tinder. Cities crumbled into glowing rubble. Entire defense grids blinked offline as generators melted. On the Resolute's bridge, every screen showed the horror. Elena Marlowe forced herself to watch. A captain didn't have the luxury of looking away. Enemy cruisers are targeting civilian sectors, Imani reported, voice taut with fury. They're bypassing our defense platforms, straight to population centers. Of course they are, Elena muttered. Terror is their first weapon. She straightened. Reroute power to long-range batteries. Make them pay for every strike. The Resolute trembled as its spinal cannon roared. A stream of tungsten slugs screamed through vacuum, punching into the flank of a Zorth destroyer. The alien ship split open like a crushed insect, venting fire and bodies into the void. Confirmed kill, Gunnery reported. But for every ship they dropped, 3 more pressed forward. The Dominion's strategy was clear. Overwhelm, devastate, shatter morale. Surrender would follow. Only, it hadn't. Not a single human channel had broadcast compliance. Not the governor's office, not the militia, not even the terrified civilians huddled in shelters. Instead, Elena intercepted fragments of local transmissions. Defiance, curses hurled at the sky, songs sung underground to drown the sound of bombardment. Humanity wasn't kneeling. Not yet. Ground site. Ardent Chateau 12. Defense bunker. Colonel Vida Dos wiped ash from her visor. The air outside was a choking haze, thick with the acrid stink of burning cities. Above, alien strike craft howled through the atmosphere, firing indiscriminately at roads and convoys. Her battalion crouched in the shattered remains of a defense bunker. "Day boy, Captain Marlowe, I admire your persistence. Most species understand futility sooner. You must see your losses. Cities burning. Soldiers crushed. What is the purpose of this resistance? Spare your kind more agony. Kneel." Elena met his gaze without flinching. "You've already made a mistake, Krith?" "Oh?" His voice dripped contempt. She leaned forward, voice low but carrying. "You think survival is our highest instinct. You're wrong. Humanity has lived through plagues, wars, genocides, and extinction events. Survival is only half the story. The other half?" She bared her teeth. "Defiance!" Her crew's eyes shone. Krith's mandibles twitched, and the transmission cut. "Message received," Imani muttered with grim satisfaction. Hours later, the battle dragged into a war of attrition. Human frigates weaved through the Dominion's massive formations, darting into fire before retreating into debris fields. Fighters swarmed like gnats, harrying larger craft. Losses mounted on both sides, but the difference was clear. Humans adapted. When missiles ran dry, pilots rammed explosives into improvised launchers. When comms were jammed, ships blinked navigation lights in coded signals. When shields failed, engineers rerouted power from life support just long enough for one more volley. Kryth expected panic, collapse, surrender. Instead, he faced stubborn innovation. On the ground, Colonel Doss's battalion ambushed Dominion patrols with mines built from stripped power cores. Farmers turned tractors into barricades. Civilians passed ammo from hand to hand like lifelines. Every street became a trap. Bridge of the Resolute. "Captain, ground forces request fire support along grid Sigma 7. Do we have a clear shot?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then give it to them." The Resolute's cannons roared again, pulverizing a line of alien armor threatening the colony's capital. In the silence that followed, Governor Harren's shaken voice came through comms. "Captain, they expected us to beg. The people are still fighting. God help me, they're cheering every time we hear your cannons fire." Elena closed her eyes briefly. That was why they couldn't surrender. Not just pride, hope. She opened them, steel returning. Governor, tell your people this. The Dominion wants us to kneel. We'll show them humanity only kneels to bury our dead. Zorth flagship, Oblivion's Fang. High Marshal Kryth loomed over his officers, mandibles grinding in frustration. Holographic displays showed mounting Dominion losses, more than predicted. The humans fought like cornered beasts, yes, but also with unnerving coordination. An aide ventured. Shall we intensify planetary bombardment, my lord? Reduce them to ash? Kryth's eyes narrowed. Too easy, too final. Dominion doctrine required conquest, not annihilation. Subjects had to be broken, not erased. And yet, these humans resisted more fiercely than expected. If he obliterated them outright, the council might call it weakness. No, Kryth snarled. We tighten the vice. Let them believe their defiance matters. Then we crush the last of their hope in front of them. He turned to the stars, gaze fixed on the stubborn human flagship. Let the captain fight. It will make her final defeat exquisite. Final moments of the day. On the Resolute, the stars flickered through drifting wreckage. Human ships formed a ragged line, battered but intact. Fires burned across Ardent 12 and 12, but the colony still stood. Exhaustion pressed on every soul aboard, yet none spoke of surrender. Elena stood at the viewport, smoke-stained, eyes unyielding. They think we're breaking, she said softly, mostly to herself. But they haven't seen us fight at our worst. They haven't seen what we do when we have nothing left to lose. Imani joined her. Vitelahi, voice equally grim. And when we do? Elena's lips curved, thin and dangerous. That's when we're strongest. The Dominion had unleashed fire and terror. Humanity answered with iron and will. And the Resolute drifted among wreckage, its hull scorched, shields flickering. For 12 straight hours, the Dominion had hammered Ardent 12. Elena Marlowe stood at the holotable, dark circles under her eyes, mind racing. Defiance alone wouldn't win. Humanity couldn't match the Dominion ship for ship. If they kept trading blows, the Resolute and every other vessel in orbit would be reduced to ash. We need a miracle, Commander Imani muttered, scrubbing sweat from his brow. No, Elena replied, voice low but sharp. We need something the Dominion doesn't expect. The holotable lit with orbital data, asteroid clusters scattered across the system's outer belt. Jagged rocks, ice, magnetic fields. Dangerous terrain for navigation. Dangerous, unless you were desperate enough to use it. Elena's gaze hardened. We don't beat them head-on. We bleed them in the belt. The briefing room. Exhausted officers gathered around, eyes hollow but alert. Elena tapped commands, projecting the asteroid field. Here, she said, pointing to a dense cluster. The Zord think we'll keep defending Ardent 12 directly. Instead, we lure them here. Lieutenant Arya Solis frowned. Captain, their sensors will see through it. They'll never follow us blind. That's why we give them bait, Elena said. We leak false intel. Convince them our last heavy transports are retreating through this sector. They'll come to cut us off. Imani caught on instantly, and once they're inside, we collapse the belt around them. A murmur spread through the room. Risky, bold, human. Elena nodded. We seed the field with explosives, mines, reactor cores, whatever we can strip from our crippled ships. Once they're inside, we detonate. The rocks do the rest. A young ensign whispered, Captain, if the timing's off, we'll be caught too. Elena looked at every one of them, her voice unwavering. Then we make dam! The trap ignites. Explosions erupted across the belt. Abandoned reactor cores, jury-rigged mines, even scuttled human frigates detonated in perfect sequence. The blasts hurled asteroids into motion, massive rocks colliding in a chain reaction. The Dominion fleet convulsed. Cruisers slammed into stone, shattering under the impact. Others swerved wildly, colliding with their own allies. Plasma fire lit the void as panic rippled through their formation. From the shadows, the Resolute's engines roared to life. Human ships surged forward, weapons blazing. "Target their crippled vessels first," Elena commanded. "Cut them apart!" Railgun slugs ripped through fractured hulls. Missiles pierced weakened shields. Fighters darted like knives, exploiting every gap. "Enemy losses climbing fast!" Solis shouted. 5, 6, 7 ships destroyed!" Elena's jaw set. "Make it 10. Dominion flagship, Chaos." Kraith bellowed as alarms shrieked across his bridge. Officers scrambled, shouting reports of collisions, reactor breaches, failing shields. "This is no retreat!" one cried. "It's a trap!" Kraith slammed his claws into the command dais, sparks flying. Rage burned in his eyes. The humans had deceived him, outmaneuvered him. He spat the word like venom. "Clever vermin." The decisive strike. As the belt collapsed into chaos, the Resolute broke through, leading a spearhead straight at Kraith's flagship. "Concentrate all fire on the Fang's escorts," Elena ordered. "Clear us a path." The Resolute shuddered as enemy salvos slammed into its flanks. Panels exploded, flames licking the bridge. But human firepower answered in kind. Dominion escorts fell one by one, shredded in bursts of light. "Shields at 30%! Imani yelled. "Hold course!" Elena snapped. Her voice cut through the smoke, unyielding. "We end this now!" Groundside, the sky burns. Colonel Dos and her batta. Lion looked up from their trenches. Above the smoke-filled atmosphere, the sky flared with fire as the battle raged in orbit. They couldn't see details, but they saw ships burning, explosions scattering debris like meteors. One soldier whispered, "Is that us?" Dos grinned fiercely. "Damn right it is. That's humanity giving them hell." The soldiers roared approval, firing on alien patrols with renewed ferocity. Hope was no longer fragile. It was a weapon. Final gambit in the belt. The Resolute pierced the Dominion line, battered but unbroken. Kraith's flagship loomed ahead, crimson and monstrous, shields flickering under the chaos of colliding asteroids. Elena leaned over the console. "Bring us within strike range." Imani stared. "Captain, if we get that close, we don't get another chance," she said coldly. "If Kraith escapes, he'll rebuild. If we kill him here, the Dominion bleeds with him." The crew understood. Fear flickered, but so did pride. The Resolute charged. Cliffhanger ending. Kraith's voice thundered across comms once more, fury and disbelief mingling. "You think this changes anything, human? You think defiance will save you?" Elena's reply was ice. "No, but it'll destroy you." The Resolute dove into the storm, weapons locked, every soul aboard bracing for impact. The trap had been sprung. The real battle was only beginning. The corridors of the Resolute shuddered again, lights flickering as the ship endured another barrage. Commander Elias braced against the bulkhead, teeth clenched, watching damage reports flood the screens. Hull integrity was down to 42%. Their railguns were overheating. And yet, the crew still stood, bloodied but unbroken. "Status?" Elias barked. Chief Engineer Morales wiped sweat from his brow. "We've rerouted power through the secondary conduits. It'll buy us 5 minutes before the reactor cooks itself." 5 minutes. Elias's jaw tightened. That was either their doom or their salvation. Across the bridge, Sergeant Khalil laughed grimly. 5 minutes is all we ever need. Elias caught the defiant glint in his eyes. That was humanity in a nutshell. Cornered, desperate, but ready to make those last seconds count. The comms officer shouted suddenly, "Enemy hail! Direct transmission from High Commander Vorka himself." The bridge fell into tense silence. Elias gave a curt nod. "Put him through." The holographic projection of the alien warlord filled the center of the bridge, a towering figure with plated skin and cruel reptilian eyes. His voice was a guttural growl that echoed through the chamber. "Humans!" Vorka sneered. You persist in this farce of resistance. Your vessel is crippled, your fleet scattered, your world within our grasp. I offer you one final chance. Surrender now, and some of you may yet live." The crew stiffened, glaring at the alien image. Elias stepped forward, straightening his uniform despite the bloodstains. "Surrender?" His voice was low, steady. "You still don't understand us, do you?" Vorka's eyes narrowed. "Enlighten me." Elias allowed himself a thin smile. "We don't measure survival in days or even centuries. We measure it in defiance. Every time you thought we'd kneel, we stood. Every time you thought we'd break, we fought harder." "You're right about one thing, Vorka. We are at the breaking point." He leaned in closer to the projection, voice sharpening. "And that means you should be very afraid." The alien commander snarled. "Empty words." "Not words," Elias said, cutting the transmission with a decisive gesture. The bridge came alive again, tension snapping like a taut wire. "Captain," Morales said carefully, "if you're planning what I think you are, the odds of survival are—" "Don't give me odds," Elias interrupted. "Give me ignition." Khalil slapped the console with a grin. "Now that's the human I signed up to follow." The Resolute lunged forward, thrusters screaming as the ship barreled straight into the heart of the alien formation. Plasma fire seared past them, rocking the hull, but they didn't veer off course, not this time. The crew worked in a frenzy, timing every move to the second. Power diverted to the engines, shield emitters rerouted, the railguns aligned for one last, catastrophic volley. On the forward screen, the massive flagship of the Threxian fleet loomed larger and larger, its spiked silhouette blotting out the stars. "Target lock acquired," Khalil announced, voice taut with adrenaline. "Fire," Elias ordered. The railguns unleashed a storm of hypervelocity slugs, tearing through the enemy cruiser escorts like paper. Explosions blossomed in their wake, turning the black of space into a field of burning wrecks. But the flagship held firm, shields flaring. "Impact minimal," reported Tactical. "That was the distraction," Elias said. His eyes burned with the determination. "Bring us in close." "Close!" Morales nearly shouted. "That thing will rip us apart! Closer than they'll ever expect!" The Resolute dove into the enemy flagship's shield perimeter, alarms shrieking as the ship scraped against raw energy fields. The hull groaned, metal tearing at the edges. But they made it inside, right into the vulnerable underbelly of the beast. Elias gave the final command, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Detonate the reactor core. Controlled overload. Maximum yield." The crew froze, realization dawning. It wasn't just suicide, it was vengeance. Khalil slammed his fist against his chest in salute. "For Earth!" "For Earth!" the bridge echoed. Morales' hands flew across the console. "Overload sequence engaged. 30 seconds." The hum of the ship deepened, a rising roar as the reactor spiraled into critical. Red light bathed the bridge. Every crew member stood tall, eyes locked on their captain. Vorka's flagship loomed on the viewscreen, unaware of the storm brewing in its belly. Elias looked around his bridge one last time, faces battered, uniforms torn, but spirits unbroken. Humanity distilled to its essence. "We didn't surrender," he said softly. The Resolute erupted in a blinding flare of white fire, a detonation so violent it shattered the enemy flagship from within. The blast tore through the Threxian fleet, ripping ships apart, scattering debris across the void. "The shockwave!" he echoed into the silence of space. Where once there had been an invincible armada, now only ruin drifted. And through that ruin, humanity's defiance blazed brighter than any star. The stars above Earth were still scarred from the battle. Wreckage drifted silently. Twisted alien hulls, fragments of steel and bone, drifting like broken constellations. And at the heart of that graveyard, there was no trace of the Resolute. The ship that had carried humanity's defiance had gone out in fire, taking the enemy flagship with it. For 3 days, the galaxy buzzed with disbelief across the networks of 100 worlds, Images played on repeat. The Threxian armada, the pride of their war machine, obliterated not by overwhelming fleets, but by a single battered human warship and a crew who refused to kneel. High Commander Vorka was dead. His empire had lost its spear point, and for the first time in centuries, the predators of the stars were afraid. General Stroud stood in the War Council chamber, staring at the star maps glowing across the holotable. Enemy fleets, once encroaching on Earth, were now retreating, scattered, leaderless. He clenched his fists, grief heavy in his chest. "Commander Elias," Stroud whispered to himself, "you mad bastard! You bought us time!" Behind him, the councillors, once so cautious, so divided, spoke with a new edge in their voices. "Other colonies are rising up," one reported. "Species enslaved by the Threxians for generations are seizing their chance. They saw what humans did, and now they believe." Another chimed in, their broadcast of Vorka's hail, and Elias's reply, "It's spreading like wildfire." The words, "We didn't surrender," have become a rallying cry. Stroud turned slowly, his scarred face lit by the flicker of star charts. "Then let it be more than words. Let it be who we are. Humanity has shown the galaxy what defiance looks like. Now it's time to show them what victory means." Far from Earth, in the shattered remains of the Threxian capital, survivors clawed through the ruins. Fear crept into every Wispemki. If the humans could do this, what else could they do? An old merchant muttered in disbelief. "One ship." They destroyed Vorka's entire fleet with one ship. A younger warrior, trembling, spat back. "No! Not a ship. A people. They are not like us. They are fire itself." The words spread like smoke. Fire itself. And for the first time, the galaxy's predators saw prey that burned back. But not all was grief and ruin. A transmission arrived at Earth days after the battle. A battered escape pod, drifting amid the wreckage, had been recovered by scavengers. Inside, a single crew member from the Resolute had survived. The comms officer, bleeding and broken, but alive. He carried a message sealed by Elias himself. It was short, almost painfully so. A single line, recorded in the captain's calm, unwavering voice. "If you're hearing this, remember, we never surrendered. Don't start now." The message became humanity's creed. Children learned it in schools. Soldiers painted it on their armor. Colonists whispered it as they built new worlds under alien suns. It wasn't just defiance, it was identity. Years later, when the chronicles of the war were written, historians argued over strategy, over technology, over whether the sacrifice of the Resolute was the turning point, or merely one spark among many. But ordinary people knew better. The moment Elias cut Vorka's transmission and declared, "We didn't surrender," that was the birth of something larger than war. That was the moment the galaxy learned what it meant to fight a species that refused extinction. And long after the Threxians were dust, that moment echoed. In the quiet of his office, General Stroud kept a hollow image on his desk. Elias and his crew lined up on the bridge before their final mission, eyes hard but smiling. Heroes not by choice, but by necessity. Stroud would often stand there late at night, nang at their faces, and whisper the words that had carried them all through fire and ruin. "We didn't surrender." Then he'd turn back to the endless work ahead. Because humanity had survived, yes, but survival wasn't enough anymore. They were no longer the galaxy's victims. They were its example. The fire of Earth had been lit, and the stars would never see the same darkness again. Tiene linda aseo.